Awesome. Hey, everybody. We are live. Today we're talking about some one of my favorite topics in the world, proposals and scopes of work. Actually, they're really, really important, right? Because in order to actually accomplish a goal and make sure that teams work well and everyone's happy, it's really, really important to be able to make sure there's alignment and clarity and taking the time to do these things upfront well keeps a project on the rails, right? And as a freelancer or an agency, if you're the service provider, um, that's critical, right? Because you're not trying to just sell one project and be one and done. You're trying to build trust and do good work so clients keep coming back to you. So yeah, I'm excited to show you guys where John Boards is at. We launched Fletcher about 6 months ago, and
Yeah.
yeah, and in true startup fashion, our tech is always growing and evolving. So we've got some really exciting features. Honestly, like we have built the thing that I have been waiting to have access to for my entire career. And this is the worst it's ever going to be. It's just only going to get smarter and smarter. And I'm already blown away by it. So the goal of this call is really to give Fletcher some time to demo the product and help answer any questions that you guys have. But yeah, I mean, real quick, Jonathan, I would love to have you introduce yourself before we pull up the product. Give a little context to who you are at Jumpsuit and how we've been collaborating, and kind of how you're feeling so far about where we're at.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, everyone. So my role at Jumpsuit is client success, which really means biz dev, sales, account management, all of the things that we need to do to make money. So obviously proposals, SOWs are very, very important to me. And also just a little bit of context. I'm a natural skeptic. I'm a late adopter of technology. Nicole knows this. She's dragging me into this century. But what I'll say is, like, for me to be convinced and embrace this and use it every day is actually a huge deal. So that speaks a lot to my own personal investment in this. But we all know proposals are time consuming, and every sales conversation requires momentum. Like every minute you lose or every day you lose without that conversation moving forward, it feels less likely you're going to make the sale. So this has been huge in preserving momentum, allowing me to present myself as not an authority, but at least have the knowledge and the expertise to guide someone through the sales process without having to bring in a million specialists. And I'll get into more specific anecdotes as we go through. It's so incredible how much it's changed and impacted my sales process and even the way I think about approaching a sales call. So
Yeah, amazing. You are an old soul, and it means the world that you've trusted us along the way and that you are so excited to be using it. It's incredible.
Awesome. I'd add too, like, I mean, I've done freelance work for 18 years. I've done consulting and freelance for 18 years. Most of it's through agencies I'll partner with or whatever for projects or, like through Jumpsuit. And in those cases, obviously you have an SOW built. But when it comes to the SOW specifically, every time I've done work, just me and a client, I've actually never put together an SOW. I always would put together the proposal, like, here's what I'm going to do. And then I'd bill and I'd do the first invoice. And I felt like that was like enough to like kind of get across, which is true. Like it does get you to start and you can like do the project successfully. Obviously you're not covered legally if something goes off the rails, but I just trusted, I guess, myself that I could get the job done. But what I've realized recently is you're not just selling to your clients like the final product. You're selling to your clients trust. And so even if you're a freelancer and you don't feel like you have the you're not legally exposed in a way that's like, oh, I should put SOWs together, you're actually kind of missing a unique deliverable that can build trust in your clients and actually lead to more work. Because when you bring them something that makes them say like, hey, we're just like legally protecting you, it shows them that they can trust you more, right? And I think it's going to lead to more work and even a higher price for what you do. So anyway, just my personal folly that I've only recently realized I was missing an opportunity to use this deliverable, an SOW, as a trust building, I guess, piece of the relationship.
Absolutely. Yeah. And all I add is I think that's huge because no SOW or proposal really is created equally. There's always some level of like customization with a processor, unless you're just selling a product that just, here you go. And so I think it just takes so much time to build that trust. And a lot of times it's experiential throughout a project. So giving them a taste of that up front and saying, hey, we've cast a vision for a long-term relationship, but we're only talking about this piece right now, shows like, oh, they're in it for the long run, but also they're sort of exposing, sort of, it's transparent what they're doing. And I think it's a really, really good way to sort of be open from the start with a client. So absolutely.
Yeah, love it. Well, let's hop in. I mean, we've got some really exciting features to show you, Fletcher. I'll just allow you to pull up your screen and take it from here.
Sounds good. Awesome. All right. So, usually when we go through the tour, we start with the public view. So we give you all up to speed, but just to give you a super fast demo, if this is the first time you're seeing Jump Boards, Jump Boards is essentially a easy way for you to document all your services that you offer as an agency or service provider, so that clients, existing clients or new clients, can go through, find what you do, actually read through what it is, link to case studies, read about the exact process you take to get that job done. And they can do this all on their own, or obviously with a voiceover from you. But it begins to just build trust because you are explicitly and transparently showing them exactly the path you take to get the job done, and why it's different from other agencies, and why it's your, special magic. And if they are just self-guiding, there's always a call to action at the bottom of the job board that lets them like reach out to you to actually, book a one-on-one or request a proposal. But all the while, if you are actually leading them through this, you have full access on the on your team side to actually, build, manage, maintain, and control and build proposals from those job boards. So that's my little 30 seconds, so we can jump into the meat of today's topic, which is this proposal builder. So I'm actually going to start at the very beginning. Let's go through. So we're in here as Jumpsuit, and let's actually create a new service that Jumpsuit's interested in building. I just thought it'd be fun to do like a special event catering. It's not something we really do, but I just want to show you some cool magic. So one, I'm going to hit generate on this, and it is creating for us a best-in-class process for doing this kind of service. This is really fun, and this is only going to grow from what you're about to see here, but this helps you get from that 0 to 80% finish mark. We've realized that the amount of calories it takes to get from 0 to 1 is like 10 times that from getting from 1 to 2. So we like to help you basically put together again, a best-in-class process for what it looks like to do a special event catering service. This puts together these different phases with milestones. Each milestone has a description on it. And you can see right off the bat, I've never done catering, but this looks pretty good. And I can obviously go in and keep editing and managing this to make it more specific to me. But in this case, let's actually say that this this service is ready to go. We love it. And we actually want to we have Coca-Cola reaches out to us and says, hey, I want you guys to, cater our next, big dinner event. So let's go in here, and we're going to actually hit publish, and we're going to start a proposal. So let's do this proposal for Coca-Cola. And that's cool. It brings up the list of clients, and so you can just select from them there. And we're going to do, a New Year's Eve event. All right, hit create on that. So what it's doing is taking this process, duplicating it, turning it into a proposal for Coca-Cola that we're going to be able to kind of further tweak and tune as we move forward here. So again, already in I think we're at like 4 clicks or so, we've created a new a brand new service offering, and then we are going to be able to go in and actually start putting together a proposal for Coca-Cola. So here's that process now in a proposal. Lots of things we're going to go through here. So one, we have a nice logo at the top, label of the event that we're doing. And this is special event catering by Jumpsuit. We have a place here to add a proposal deck. So if you have like Google sheet that kind of shows exactly what that, maybe a more overview, introduces who the players are and stuff like that, you can actually just include that here, and it embeds it so that now whenever your client sees this, there is that voiceover in the room when you're not in the room, which is really nice and kind of goes a long way. And also when you're presenting yourself, it's nice to share your screen once and not have to stop sharing screen when you're doing this and then go back to something else. It just has everything in one single place. And then below that, we have, again, the duplicated process, right? The best-in-class process that you say, if you do this, we are promising success. But as we all know, in every good proposal, there is customizations. There is going to be some sort of budgetary or timeline or skill or new request that comes in. And so we definitely intend that you would be able to further customize this process in a few ways. One, you'll go through this probably with the client and talk through, hey, these are items that are going to be required. Here's some milestones that are going to be, optional. Let's do that one being optional. And here's ones that actually they want to either the client or provider they want to skip entirely. We'll say that they don't want to do a menu tasting for some reason, and they also are going to provide the logistics planning. So client provided. So right off the bat, you have this consistent source of truth of what you say is the best way to get the job done and where you're deviating to accommodate the client's requests. Why is this important? Because if the project ever does go off the rails, you have a real subtle way to point back and say, well, you asked to skip this, or you said you'd actually supply this, right? It's embarrassing to actually have to work halfway through a project and open up an SOW and figure out, oh, what did we actually say? I don't think we're supposed to do that. This is always in plain sight throughout the life cycle of the project of what the agreement was right off the bat. And Nicole can speak to this as well. But if you go through and let's say you're talking to, maybe a high up, a stakeholder in the project, but you say, hey, we're gonna actually skip this whole process here, and then inevitably before they sign this proposal and get it started, they're gonna have to go up and get buy-in from their VP or someone, right? And so having this singular link that shows like, oh, we're skipping these items. And when they go and show that VP and that VP says, oh, why are we skipping this? This would be great. We should do that. You've just expanded someone's, basically your scope of work without even being in the room.
Yes, I can concur. And as a matter of fact, I wanted to point out at any point you can also add an entirely new phase and milestones too. So, for instance, we may find that it's really important to a client that we're actually on site and we do a workshop together to kick off the work. So we could add that into the proposal, or in this case of event planning, I think a good salesperson is going to be like, hey, by the way, we're just here to like pull off the event, but are you guys filming it? I'm making this up. Are you guys filming it? It'd be really cool because you could actually create a bunch of content at scale if you had a crew there. Is that something that you guys would be interested in? And they'd be like, holy crap, we didn't even think about that. What a great idea. Let's include that in the scope of work too. So it becomes a really, really helpful tool to be able to not just get alignment, but really to blow out a successful project. And I know I kind of want to interject. I know that I'm really good at seeing all those opportunities. That's just one of my skill sets. It's how I've been able to build a full service agency. And I know that not everyone on the team, especially in sales, if they haven't like done the work themselves, it can be really hard. Jonathan, maybe you want to chime in and speak to this. It can be really hard sometimes to know if you're offering the right things or leaving money on the table. And what's, obviously you can go to the team and you can get input from other people, which you do, but there's also this little rocket ship up there by the share button. And you can even ask AI, you can ask jaunt boards to make any other suggestions that you might be missing. So I don't know if you want to play around with that, but another really, really great tool to help you make sure you're getting the most helpful proposal back to the client.
Yeah, and Nicole, you said it really well, but I would just say, like, for me, in a sales role, I am not an expert on everything that Jumpsuit does, and our capabilities are always expanding with our network. So it used to take a lot of time, unless it was something, I know exactly what that process looks like and I can formulate it. It was almost like, okay, got to go back to the team, pull in the right specialist. Oh, is that the right person? Oh no, actually who I need to be talking to is this. Literally, I have just input the most minimal information into jaunt boards, and it spits something out for me that, that's not like the final thing, but it is a framework to get me the information I need if I need to pull someone else in. And what I've learned is oftentimes I don't need to, because it shows me what I need to be asking and tells me what I don't know and where I need help, and also shows all of these options of things take it or leave it. It almost is like gives a client a menu without forcing the menu approach, but makes it feel cohesive and strategic at the same time. So it's saved a lot of time.
Yeah, and I know I didn't ask you to do any math before the call, but I'm just curious, do you have a sense of how much time you were spending on proposals before jump boards and now with jump boards?
Even with all of our proposal templates that we had for all of our different services, it always took at least, honestly, an hour or so per proposal. Some proposals could take 2 days, depending on how big
It
it
could
is.
take a week if it was a big RFP. It really kind of depend. Yeah.
But I actually did think about this earlier. I was like, in the time it took me to make one proposal for like a similar project with jump boards, it probably would have taken me 5 times as much time to do it by hand, or whatever it took, even for something simple. It's crazy.
And that's your time. And then so there's also the agency paying for the creative director's input, their time, and the digital director's input, and the product person's input. And so and you don't know if you're gonna win the deal too. So the goal, like the balance is, you want to make the best proposal that gives you the best shot to be able to have a client be excited to choose you without spending too much time that you're just putting yourself at risk.
Well, and think about how many you can give a best-in-class proposal for every opportunity, how big or small it is. Like, I've used this to disqualify something, but I still feel like I did my due diligence and I painted a picture where they might need to come back because they really do understand what we can do. But I didn't waste my time crafting a proposal just to have to send it. And think about, from a scaling perspective, if you could create all these more proposals and you just win one of them in the time that it would have taken to create so many more, like, you can do the math yourself.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. It's really cool. So let's talk about like usually the steps that go after this. So you'd set this up initially, and Jonathan, you can chime in here too, but you'd set this up and maybe kind of go through, then you'd probably have a conversation with the client where you'd walk through this and talk them through what you intend to do. I just want to add that meeting and their initial reaction when they see your process laid out like this, you can really like kind of feel the difference it makes, I think, in the room, where they're like, oh my gosh, you guys have thought through this so well. I feel so safe going with you because I know you've thought through this so well. And by the way, everything is shareable. So if you share that exact same link with the client, they have access to view that. It doesn't have they can't make any edits or change anything. They just see exactly what you're sending there. So you start the meeting like sending them over the link. They can kind of get a visual on exactly what it's going to look like. Again, like I said, you can feel the trust that's building right away. And at any point, that relationship that maybe started, because you got an email and they found out you did catering, they have no idea of your other massive amount of offerings you have. This link that you're sending them at the top has a link that goes back to all of your services. So clicking on that just brings you back to your job board overview. And then they can actually realize like, oh, I didn't know you guys also did brand videos. Of course, I need that as well. And so you can already begin to expand your share of wallet with that particular client, which is really nice. But this conversation goes a long way, where you're building trust right at the beginning and saying, this is what we're setting out to do. This is why we do it different. And usually they're way more eager to get started because they're seeing exactly what first steps are going to get done. And they're just excited to, make that happen with you. But if I go back over here, I want to note a few things. During that call, you'd probably also further refine this. You'd maybe add a few more items. They would tell you to let's skip some of these items or what. But when you're all set and you've actually finished, editing and you kind of have it in a good place, we just launched this yesterday, actually. You can also add in here, this is a statement of work. And this lets you put in some other details. So one, it lets you put in let's do the start date as May 1st. And, you can do and by the way, these are free forms. You can put anything you want to. You could say start date is Q3, start date is, 2025. However you want to communicate it, or even a range, you could say, the timeline is 20 to 22 weeks. But in this case, I'll just it's going to be July 4th. And then our total cost, you can, again, put a range. You can say this will be, $2K to $5K. But for this case, we'll just do $15,000. So, and then another thing you can do is you can show the time and cost summary line on a job board. So I'm going to toggle that on, and then hit save. And I want to show you what that looks like. So it just adds a little line here that shows you what that start date is, timeline, and cost. What we like about this, that you can toggle that on and off really easily, is if you're just meeting with the client for the first few weeks and you don't really want this to be visible throughout the life cycle of the project, maybe it's more sensitive to your team and stuff like that. That just lets you sort of show it when it needs to be shown, and then you can toggle that off, and it would obviously be probably in the SOW that you'll send over later that we'll get into. But that's a cool new feature that just lets you have a nice top view summary of the start date, timeline, and cost of this project. So let's talk about building an SOW. So I'm curious, Jonathan, in a month ago, if you had to build an SOW off of this, what does that process look like?
A lot of copying and pasting, which is helpful, but it's basically some form of, manually converting what's here into an SOW template, which honestly does help a lot of the way, because this is easier to convert than like a deck or a PowerPoint or a Google Slides, but it's still time intensive. And there's still things that can be missed and, all of that. So manual.
Yep. Okay. Awesome. Yep. And like you said, at least this being linear and like showing exactly what the process is, there's a lot of, it helps. You don't have to read between the lines or like figure out what other steps maybe were omitted in a deck.
Yeah. And I'm going to add real quick too. By the way, 15,000 is a great deal for Coca-Cola. No, but like, especially when you're working with a bigger client, they're going to want more details, right? They're going to want to know a breakdown of timeline and cost per deliverable, right? So there's all, thank you for changing that. So I mean, you're gonna to deliver an SOW that just has that simplicity line of here's the total cost and here's what we're going to do bullet pointed. If you're working with a bigger company, that's going to actually lose trust if you don't actually show them the breakdown of timeline and budget per item.
And assumptions, like, payment, like there's all these logistical things. So it's like, hey, take the bulk of here that's important, but then there's a lot of filling in of details that has to be done.
Right. And so that's where a lot of the time that you'd be spending on really polishing an SOW you'd be talking to a program manager, how long is this going to take? What's this cost? Yeah. Like what are we going to say to make sure the client's really clear what's in scope and out of scope, so we don't get in a tricky situation down the line.
Yep. Absolutely. Awesome. So you just saw, I pulled this up again, and we have this nice button that just says create new SOW. So I click that. It does take about 40 seconds, so we'll have to make some small talk as it puts this thing together. But this is really exciting. We are so excited that, and like Nicole said, today is the worst it's ever going to be, and I think you're going to be pretty impressed with even where it's at right now. But this lets you get from that 0 to 1 in one click, right, in 40 seconds now instead of maybe a week. And then you can just further refine it and put in the language maybe that you want specifically. But we're really excited that this brings maybe something that's reserved for agencies that maybe or at least a bigger freelancer that has a legal team or knows how to put these together, and just brings it right to your doorstep so that you can do this in a single click, which we're really, really excited about. While this is building, I just want to note that you'll notice we've made certain milestones optional and we've skipped a few. And I believe I put one as client, that the client's responsible for that particular project. So that I just want to make a note because you're going to see that come in here. Okay, so it's built that first version. I could rerun that. So if I wanted to change the cost, I could hit create a new SOW and it would make a version 2. So I can make any changes I want to that. But let's go ahead and open this guy up. And I'm going to open with Google Docs so we can go in and actually even edit this. All right, so a few things. One, we have a nice logo lockup at the top. Document overview, so it has all the legal language about what exactly is being done, and who it's for. All the typical kind of legal language for an SOW. We have project details. We have the different phases and the different milestones that are being promised in this particular layout. We have an assumptions that are built out, and this is really interesting too. I want to go in and read this really quick, but this actually builds assumptions based around the project type that you're doing. So in a lot of cases, also like if you're doing, and it'll even look at things that are going to be client provided and actually put those in the assumptions as well and say, hey, if you don't, provide this particular milestone on time, it'll get off track. But it's taking in only the items that are going to be done for this project. So if they were skipped, it doesn't include it in there. And then puts together a payment schedule for you based on the total cost. And then puts together legal language and then a place to sign and a little footer on that as well. So again, it's getting you to such a great spot where you can go in and further refine this and make it better. And I have other examples we can open up and kind of look through. But it's pretty impressive what it's doing just right out the gate. Here's another one that we put together, and it lets you just kind of walk into this with an initial draft put together.
Nice. So I'm noticing that this one pulled in the milestone descriptions, estimated cost, and timeline, and the other one didn't. Is that because we're waiting for that feature update?
Actually, it's the nature of the project. Depends on what the descriptions are and what the and how long and how big and robust the actual project is. But yeah, we're definitely gonna continue to work where we're gonna have a little bit more consistency across each proposal. Right now, it's sort of deciding, depending on how robust the entire process is, if it wants to break it down into each milestone. Because sometimes a cost doesn't make sense to break down between two different milestones. But in this particular example, it did. And so it did that work as well. We're told you each milestone description and estimated cost and time.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It's actually a temperature setting. Anyway, learning a lot about the AI world. But yeah, it's a temperature setting, basically, that we're going to have it be more consistent and versus being more creative.
Yeah. And for me, it's like, I don't know what percentage of the work it's actually doing that I would normally be taking on or our team will be taking on, but it gets it to such a place where like the heavy lifting feels done, or like the stuff that just like is not fun to do, like organizing information and all of that stuff. Like it does the heavy, like whether it gets you 10% or 80% of the way there, it feels like 80% or 90%. And that makes a huge difference.
Yep.
So I'm seeing you just cut my budget in half. I'm assuming that we came in a little too high and they asked us to shave some money.
Yep, exactly. Yep. So just looking at running through what that looks like. So what we like is we keep a running list of all the SOWs. We're not exposing this document directly to the client. So you've built this, but you only are the one that have access to open that up and go in and make further edits to this. That way you can kind of get this into your right spot and then usually just download, as a PDF or whatever, and then send that over. Whereas you'll see later if we have time to look at like deliverables, AI generated deliverables, those are actually uploaded and the client can have access to those. But in this case, we actually just hide them all in this little generate SOW modal. So only you have access to jump in and read those or delete those, or team members do. Cool. All right, so we built version 2. Let's take a look at that one. Okay, awesome. So we've changed we have 20 weeks, starting May 1st, total estimate budget of 80,000. In this case, actually brought in the descriptions. I like this as well. It's showing items that are optional, items that are client provided. It's again building out the assumptions. This is great. So venue and date are confirmed and provided by Coca-Cola. Any permits or licenses required to event secured by Coca-Cola. Again, I just love that. I love where it brings in assumptions, especially I've done this across a lot of things like house cleaning or event planning or estate management, just trying to push it to its edges. And it's so interesting, the assumptions it builds in custom to the type of project it has. And again, put together a payment schedule. That's also a really interesting thing to see, the way it sort of gives you an initial idea on how to charge that. Sometimes it's like per milestone, or half up front, half at the end. It depends on the size of the check usually and the number of milestones. But again, it's fully editable. And then at the end, place for signatures as well. Yeah. So I like this one better for sure.
I don't want to underestimate how important the assumptions are, for lack of a better word, just because I think, especially as like a freelancer, you're expected to be a salesperson, the creator, the person executing the work, and your own lawyer, like all of these things, your own accountant. And so you want to protect yourself and the client. And I just think, like, for me, unless I know every little facet, I don't know what I need to assume. You don't know what you don't know. And I think having it pulled from there just gives you that extra confidence on both ends.
Yep.
Love it. Okay, so I kind of want to go back to the very beginning, because the way that you created a proposal was you just randomly picked an entirely new service, which is cool, right? Because that means if I'm a freelancer or an agency who just does UX, UI, design of websites, well, now maybe I can also develop them because I have a process, and I'll be able to kind of pull in other collaborators or another partner agency to help. But what I'm really excited to show everybody is how to leave a discovery call, take a transcript, and immediately build a proposal in seconds after that.
Awesome. Yeah. Let's take a look at that. So we'll rewind back to the beginning. We put in here just that event, right? The event catering. But what else you can do is actually hit the little rocket ship, and instead of creating a draft at the initial, which a draft is basically a holding place before you go and publish it to be a proposal or to be one of your template offerings, you could actually have it go and create a proposal right off the bat. So let's do this. We'll do it for Hollister. Remember them? A long time ago. And I actually have, yeah, I'm taking a sack. Exactly. I have a transcript of a conversation that I have that we were discussing a potential project. So I just grabbed the entire transcript, the header and everything. I don't need to do anything but just paste that right in, and I'm just going to hit generate. And let's let this thing do its magic. So we tested this with quite a few things. You can also do this with just any type of content, basically, but it's pretty impressive. It's going through searching this conversation, figuring out what exactly the request was, and then building a process around it. That's both maybe things you didn't talk about as well as things you did talk about, just to kind of completely create what the process would be needed to do this. So in this case, it was for a mobile app development, and you can see it's put together a pretty simplistic overview of what that project would be. So discovery, strategy phase, pre-production, production, and delivery phases. And this is to put together this mobile app that they're wanting to do. So again, in 2 clicks, basically, I can take a conversation with the client, put it in here, put together a proposal, click this. We'll say that this start date is going to be, again, we'll do May 1st. And it'll be a 6-month process, and we're wanting to sell this at $250K. And let's hit save on that.
Quick question for you, Fletcher.
Yeah.
So you pasted in the transcript, it learned from the conversation what the client's asking for. Now, is it verbatim building a project from literally everything that was discussed on the call, or is it also taking in assumptions of other things that need to be considered to actually do the project that maybe weren't actually vocalized out loud?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's taking the essence of what the conversation was about, and any really unique parts of the conversation that says, oh, we really need to put this thing into it as well. And then it's building around that a process that'll get you to that final goal. So it's expanding out from just what was the conversation was about, and actually putting together a more holistic approach of how to do that job.
Great. That's awesome. So then, yeah, essentially you can include everything that you guys talked about, so there are no surprises, and everything outside of that you get to determine, is that required or optional to ensure that project success, right? So required is going to allow you to show up as an expert in being able to build mobile apps and say, hey, we absolutely have to do these things, and here's why. Maybe other things are optional, like we didn't really talk about branding on the call, but making sure we're updating that, making sure everything's good when we build our design system, whatever, right? That could lead to incremental scopes of work.
Yep. So you can see in a minute, maybe a minute and a half, we've gone from a conversation to a nice proposal, basically, that you can send a link of, this is how we're going to do it. and even put together an SOW, an initial SOW, to do that work with assumptions and a payment schedule and everything. I mean, the momentum to, get off a call or even be on the call and provide that live for a client. I mean, momentum, and actually, Jonathan, you can speak to this, but when closing a deal, I assume momentum is a pretty big deal to actually get them to sign and then make the project happen.
Yeah, the only thing that I'd say is probably usually more important is the price. But no, honestly,
Yeah.
momentum is everything. And like, I'm even thinking later today, I have a discovery call. I've already used this I have something to sort of set the stage with the very vague things I know about this opportunity. And I plan to utilize this in real time, sort of go through the jump board that I have, turn that into a proposal. And so like that will allow me to ostensibly leave that call, be able to respond within the next whatever couple of minutes with the next step that will drive the next conversation. What I'll also add is I've tried it both ways because I was like, there's no way that it's going to take this transcript from this call that zigzagged all over the place and be able to turn it into anything. Because remember, I'm a skeptic. And so I was like, oh, I'll clean up my notes. And so I cleaned up my notes, input it. And then I was curious. So I did the transcript as well. And it was like kind of the same. Like I didn't have to go in and clean up and curate for it to weed out what was irrelevant. And if anything, it probably caught some things that I wouldn't have caught or created some opportunities. So like I had to just let the technology do its job.
That's awesome. And again, I mean, something we champion, Nicole and I both, is like AI isn't here to fully replace it. It's just here to get you from 0 to 1 in a fraction of the time it would have taken you, so that you can add that 1 to 2. And that's actually that's I think the most impressive part of your magic is what you take and how you sculpt and how you add to something. So, as powerful as some of these outputs are, I'm even going through and just, I'm more of a formatting nerd. So I was just like, oh, I'd want to highlight these things, make these bold. I want to change this to like a list, or, let's tweak some of these things. That's the intention. And that's why we actually put it into a Google Doc for you so that it's instantly editable. That was an expensive and deliberate choice we made. Instead of like exporting just a PDF that you'd have to then take and paste in, we know that we want to get you to a point where then you can just start highlighting, editing, deleting, changing, and modifying to get it to what you want. And that's true for these SOWs, as well as like you saw when it creates an actual jump board that you would go in and actually edit the phases and milestones. So we are all about letting AI do something, a first pass, but then putting it in your hands to modify and actually create and further add your magic to it. And then, and the same also with AI deliverables, we do the same thing. We put it into a Google Doc so that you can go in and continue to manage and edit and elevate that product so that, you're building trust with your clients.
Yeah.
Just faster.
Yep. Super fast. It's incredible. I am so proud of this version 1. I can even, imagine how much wiser it's going to be and how faster over time, especially as it's able to, learn from everyone else's assumptions and whatever. It's just going to become a best-in-class platform to really help make sure that projects stay on the rails. And by the way, 70% of projects fail. Isn't that funny? That's a crazy high stat. It's $1 trillion problem. So just using this tool up front, I think, is going to serve teams really, really well. I kind of want to take a little bit of a pivot here, and I want to talk for a minute about process, right? Because you can come into jaunt boards and you can say, Fletcher, you've been doing what you do for 18 years, right? In a lot of ways, you kind of created the process for some of the things that UX, UI people do, truly. Fletcher built some of the first apps ever on the App Store, and he created components we still use today. He's just been around for a while, right? So he's got his process. He knows how to do his thing. But we are living in a world now with AI, and process. Just about every single process on the planet is going to be changing. So I guess what I'm saying, to be more pointed, the way that we did work a year ago is not going to be the same way that we do work a year from now, across the board. So Fletcher, can you speak to the future potential of jaunt boards to be that go-to source of best practice?
Yeah, definitely. So as people are using the platform, and as we're able to like gather and kind of see what where AI might make suggestions on how to do a project, and then where people add their flourish. Like we will have the analytics to provide insights to agency owners or freelancers, freelancers that are wanting to improve their process to do a few things. One, a process is as good as your team and the clients interact with it. And so we actually are as you're going through a project where we have all the analytics to see what when people are interacting with the deliverables, also like the momentum through a project, so we can tell when you've when you're actually in a project and you change something from not started to in progress, and then in progress to completed. We can kind of get a sense for how long it takes these deliverables to get accomplished, or even phases to get done. And so we can make recommendations and say, hey, it feels like you're stalling during this particular phase. We recommend breaking down your process so that people can see more incremental progress throughout that process, right, or that phase. And that like gets your team and the client more engaged in the project, like kind of getting done. I think that's something that I've seen good producers do instinctually, is that they break down the project in a way so that it has a consistent cadence, where things are just getting done every week about the same clip. Like, yeah, it's fun when you have like a really exciting week and tons gets done, but it kind of sets the stage for like, ooh, now the next few weeks might be slow. So you actually almost want to slow that down. You want to have this like steady growth, right, that goes through the entire life cycle of the project. And we are gathering all the data, and we can actually provide specific insights to agency owners or freelancers to tell them where in their process they should make some tweaks or fine tune it. Or maybe even if they even omitted something that's usually best practices or something that should be put in, we should say like, hey, you need to do a strategy session here. Like you want to set yourself up for success, and just give you insights that you can pull from and continue to create and curate your special process that makes you unique in a landscape that's definitely growing at the moment.
Awesome. Yeah, we've got 15 minutes left. I think it could be really cool if you want to just pretend we went through the process of discovery, proposal, scope of work. Let's show them what it looks like to actually continue to use jaunt boards as an end-to-end product to actually execute the work and showcase the work that you did.
Yeah, you bet. We'll go back to the proposal we're doing for Coca-Cola.
Oh, I'm so excited for this New Year's.
Oh, I know, it's gonna be a big deal.
But
everyone's going.
Yeah, it's going to be huge. But honestly, like having a one source of truth from like the first conversation all the way to a project's successful completion is a big deal. Because I think every stage of that process is about momentum, and this helps create and maintain momentum.
Yeah. So let's say that we're happy. Actually, we'll leave some of these. We'll do some of them as skip, just so we can see how we map those. So let's say they're happy. They signed our version 2 SOW, so that we have that in the bank. We are good to go. We're just going to hit the big old start project button. So this takes this same jaunt board that was in a proposal mode and puts it into an active project mode. So a few things. One, it stripped out that deck that was at the top. We don't need that anymore. And it maps all of those previous statuses to new statuses. So if they were required, it goes to not started. So now I can move it from not started to in progress or completed. The ones that are client provided are still client provided, and we're still recording the ones that were skipped. So again, at any point, the client can go back and say, actually, let's actually make this required, right? I want to actually add this on. So we can make that change. And then, by the way, we're letting you have access still to that statement of work. So you could make that change and edit, say, okay, well, that's going to be another, 30 grand. And so now we can make that tweak pretty quickly, create a new SOW, and then have the changes made to that. So it's pretty cool. Right now, I'm just going to hide the summary line, so that goes away. And now we're just going to start working through the project. So we start at the top. We're going to put this into in progress, where we maybe have this meeting, and after the meeting, we maybe have a recording of it. I might want to upload a file, right? Like maybe it's meeting minutes or something for this particular meeting, or a link to like a deck or something that we shared. So you can do both those, and then we'll say that got completed. client provided. They will upload their files here. So you'll get those put in, and those will also go into completed. And then let's go into menu planning. So we'll say that this is in progress. And again, I can upload if I want to a file or a link. But in this case, let's go ahead and have AI take a first pass at our menu planning. So I'm going to hit generate and get started here. So right now it's actually looking at, we haven't uploaded anything, but it would look at any previously uploaded files. So if you had a conversation and you've uploaded those, that PDF or that link to the document or whatever, it's looking at all of that, ingesting it, and then creating for you a first pass at the deliverable here. Going to give that a second as well. And the different file types we have access to at the moment, we're going to let you put together either a document or a sheet, so a spreadsheet. And then we're working on right now also letting it put together a slide deck for you as well. So right now you'll have 3 different file types you can select from that you want this deliverable to be presented as. And then, like we said, everything is getting pushed to a Google Doc, so it is instantly editable. So you can take it from this kind of V1 state and add, your magic to it.
Awesome. So if earlier in a conversation we're talking about New Year's and there was a certain theme that came up and we uploaded that document, then it would actually be taking that as inspiration to the
Exactly.
menu, which will probably be a little more generic. But yeah, let's take a look and see what it is.
Yeah, let's take a look at this guy. And I'm going to go back and show you what that hidden menu is. All right, introduction, menu overview, appetizers, Coca-Cola glazed beef skewers. That sounds nice. Crispy tofu bites with cherry Coca-Cola sauce.
Refreshing.
Main courses, desserts, beverages. Coca-Cola makes sense. Conclusion. So pretty cool, right? It's just putting together, again, that initial pass. You can go through and further edit it. But the quality that this thing cranks out is actually pretty impressive. So one thing I'm going to note is that this has a little tag that says it's hidden. So if I can move over to our public view, so this is the way the client is viewing this. When you built that first pass, it doesn't show up here. We just implemented this change, but it lets you actually hide that initial pass so that you can make tweaks to it. And when it's ready to go, you can hit show in the public view, and then that would instantly update it so that now your client can actually have access and view that particular file. This is also nice if you're uploading, like, I don't know, things that you just don't want the client to see or they don't care about. If you're doing like meeting notes and stuff like that, that you just want your client to have access, or sorry, your team to have access to, but you don't really need to like clutter the job board. You can go into any deliverable and say hide that from public view, and it'll just show up for your team.
Yeah, cool. So I want to point out that at this moment in time, what you could do is copy that Coca-Cola menu, and you could go to your preferred AI image generator, and you can have it read that, maybe create some images so you could put in, have a little bit of mood boards. So you'd have to, like, right now leave the platform to go get those images and then pull them back in. Fletcher, would you like to talk a little bit about where we're heading with AI integrations and how we'll be able to move beyond Word?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, like I showed you, right now our final file types are limited to documents, spreadsheets, and soon to be slides. But as we find the proper vendor, whatever, the proper AI platforms that can do professional level output, that will just show up in that list as well. So you'll be able to say, actually, I want this to be a video. I want this to be an image.
Yep.
You'll just be able to select from that file type and then hit generate, and it'll create that deliverable in that way.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So that's so huge. I just want to point out, instead of having to go learn a million different AIs separately, the idea is that you could just go to job boards, do the work in the workflow that you're used to, and trust the platform to be able to pull in the best ones. When Sora's ready to go to make films, if you want to use that, it'll be right here.
Yeah, exactly. Sweet. So yeah, I'm just kind of chugging along, built the menu planning, ingredient sourcing, and then you can keep going. There's whenever it runs into something that's more about a meeting you're going to have, the deliverable actually it'll produce for you like a guide to like basically bring to the menu to bring to the meeting, and helps you kind of like go through questions that you should ask and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. But essentially what we're trying to do is ramp up your efficiency, right? So like take these things that maybe usually take, a week to produce, get a first pass on them so that you can get quicker to an inspiration moment, right? Usually your inspiration moments are, you'll have like 4 of them throughout the life cycle of a project, and they're, distanced about a month apart. But if we can put together a way for you to quickly like maintain visibility on the strategic, opportunity that's here, let you produce, some of these more, I don't know, like logistical or even research-based documents, we feel like it's going to help you get to those moments of inspiration where you really add that professional value much faster. And overall, you're building a faster throughput, which gets not just trust with your client, but gets you quicker to that second project, which is almost always for more money and a bigger scope.
Yep. Awesome. And then, let's say every once in a while, you think something's been approved and locked, and then, you keep working your way through a project, and then client comes back and says, actually, that menu planning that we thought was done, we need to make this change. Can you talk a little bit more about the ability to change one deliverable up top and have it influence the ones below?
Yeah, so something we're working on now is exactly what she's saying. So when you have this document and it says, you have a whatever it's Coca-Cola skewers as this loads. If you wanted to update that and say, actually, I want this to be chicken skewers, right? Just the act of changing that, you can imagine would have implications now throughout for your ingredient sourcing, and everything will have a little bit of a change, right? That's made from that. So what we're actually working on right now is the ability to actually note that there's been a change made there. It re-ingests whatever updates have been made, and then cascades those changes throughout any other deliverable that's been uploaded after that. So
that kind of efficiency makes me want to cry.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, for sure.
I'm a detail person, and those little details, like if I catch something that's inconsistent after the fact, it'll haunt me for years. And the fact that it can just naturally, adjust that is a huge deal, especially when it comes to trust and just being like, if you're a business owner, being professional and being buttoned up and making sure that nothing falls through the cracks is really, really important. So it's a huge, huge value add.
And then at the very end of the project, where you would typically kind of peter out, there's 2 things that happen. One is you need to collect your final check. And there's something called proof of work, and it's basically mapping back to the original proposal, an SOW, to what you finally delivered. And in the past, that's usually like an email that sort of has a list of links. But now you can see this is your proof of work. This is everything you promised all the way back on the sales call, and then into the proposal, and now into the active project. So this becomes your proof of work. You can collect payment much quicker using jump boards. And then usually that's where the project ends, right? You've done a lot of work and you're all happy and you high five, and then you just go on and get more work. But we know that case studies are a really powerful way to squeeze more value out of the work you've done. They just take a long time to put together. But now with just a click of a button, you can actually complete and create a case study with one click. And what that does is puts it into now a case study format. It changes, you'll see here in a second, has a place at the top so you can put like an image, probably the event. You put a picture of the event. You can add a little story in this as well. Like, hey, this is what we did. This is the overview of what we did for Coca-Cola. And then it just changes it so that you can either make these milestones visible or hidden to the public view. So in this case, the items that were all skipped, it automatically changes to hidden. But you can obviously tweak those back to visible. Or if there are certain milestones that are just proprietary and you don't want to have broadcast, you can also change that to hidden. And then that way you have a shareable link. And by the way, it's been the same link from proposal, active project, and case study. It's always the same exact link for the client and your team. And now you have a nice way for everyone to share the work that was done. And we take this logo, and right when you put it into case study, we actually bring it back and add it to the original source of the service that you offer. So with one click, you've now linked that case study back to the original proposal. And with one click also, they can open that. So in this case, this is Jitterbit, the work we did doing a brand refresh. And they can view that case study and see yes, not only have you done it and this is your process, but this is someone who's walked through it, and they can go and look at the different deliverables throughout that process. Super powerful in building. I mean, it's just all, it's so natural, right? It's just like, we're just cascading these amazing ways to build trust with your clients currently, and then with future ones.
That's right, because you're competing with a ton of other freelancers or agencies who's just kind of showing off the final work. Here is the website we did. Yeah. You don't really know the quality of the strategy deliverables or the creative concepts or whatever. So giving clients the ability to peek in and actually see is incredibly transparent, and no one's doing it. It's unprecedented. So in a landscape where everyone's kind of offering the same services these days, well, now you can actually truly differentiate through transparency.
Yeah,
awesome.
I mean, I was just gonna say, like, throughout my career, I feel like salespeople are always like, we need case studies. We want more case studies, but not that kind of case study. And no, that's too long. And now it's like, hey, any project is a case study. The ones that you don't want to showcase, you don't have to, but anything that was a success in any type of project is now a case study.
Yeah, and it's a narrative form. It's like, here's the journey that we go on together. It helps justify the value when you're trying to sell something for $150,000 or $500,000. Here's why. Here's all the things that we're going to do together. That feels really different and is experienced very differently from a client than just showing them a link to a website that you've done.
Because then they can see everything that happened to get to that point, but also in the context of a real project. So it's not theoretical or hypothetical or conceptual. It's like, no, this is actually what happened. And here are examples of the deliverables that got us there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Amazing. Well, we're bumping up on time. Any final words from the team? Anything else that you want to make sure comes across to people watching?
It's exciting. I mean, there's definitely lots of people who've been using it more often have found lots of really cool little hacks too, and things you can do, especially with just the way we're integrating AI into it. So, we're showing you really that core process, right, of creating templates and offering those. Oh, also, we didn't even touch on it, but you can, if you don't want to just have people go to your jauntboard.app / your URL. You can also you can actually embed those on your website as well. So you can actually have Jauntboard just manage your offerings. Yeah, again, like just embed them on your website, and then that way, when I've actually noticed this with a lot of agencies, is they fall back on like their offerings. They don't always keep those updated. But now, obviously, it is the place where you're actively working on tweaking and fine tuning your processes, and so you don't have to worry about keeping those up to date anymore. You can actually just embed them and let Jauntboards do that heavy lifting.
Yeah, you never have to feel guilty for having like 5-year-old portfolio anymore. It
right.
just stays up to date with you. It's pretty incredible. All right. Lastly, Fletcher, you want to talk about pricing?
Yeah. So for free, so we put it in three ways that we're selling this. One is Side Hustle. Side Hustle is totally free. Lets you build as many drafts as you want. Add those to your services, your offering. So you can build out, that whole front portion. You can embed that on your website, and you can even activate one of those templates at a time. So you can take one of these templates, say, yeah, actually we're going to do a brand refresh for someone, and that becomes a proposal, active project, or case study. But you can basically have one of those in there. So it's a way for you to test out if it is a side hustle for you, totally for free. You have access to build your Jauntboards using AI for free as well, and then modify those for free as well. And then we changed to the freelancer, which is $30 a month. And that gives you access to the generating the SOWs button, basically. So, and as well as have 5 active projects. So now you can take your services and have 5, running proposal, active projects, or case studies. And then, and also access to that SOW generator. And then finally, at the end, an agency price point, which is $300. That lets you have unlimited active projects, so unlimited proposals. You can see here in Jumpsuit, they have 21 proposals going, 35 active projects, and 13 case studies at the moment. And so it lets you have unlimited of those. It also lets you have access to the AI generated deliverables. And it gives you 15 seats in your company settings. So that lets you have different members come in and help add to and manage your drafts and work, add deliverables, basically have access to your portal to add help in.
That's right. And then coming soon, there's going to be an opportunity to actually hire a freelancer at a certain part of a project. So again, let's say you're a designer. At some point, you need to work with a copywriter or a developer, whatever. Yep, Fletcher's showing you. There's going to be a new little option down there that'll allow you to hire a pro. So that will essentially allow any freelancer to compete like an agency, to collaborate like an agency, and help find people if they don't already have a preferred team to work with, to be able to pull them into the project.
Exactly.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, we're at time. Feel free to DM us if you have any specific questions. Melissa, I see that you've messaged some things, so I'll follow up with you in the LinkedIn chat there. But yeah, go ahead and get started. It's really fun. Like I said earlier, this is the very beginning of what this technology will be. We are not just trying to build a platform that helps you create scopes of work, by the way. We're actually, I believe we're building an entirely new economy and new way of getting work done. So the more freelancers and agencies and that we have collaborating on here, and eventually the more clients we pull in, we'll be able to build a new, really cool way of getting work done together. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, everyone.